Hello and welcome everybody. Today we start the new series of lecture about the Dutch defense in the opening, in the close openings. So this is a natural continuation of our gambit guide. So when after d2, d4, for the first time we studied the close opening lines. So there are of course a few openings in which we may call these gambits. Let's say after d4, d5, c4. This position we call the queen's gambit. d takes c4, queen's gambit accepted. But of course, according to this theory, the name of gambit is not so actual here because white simply could win back this pawn on c4 by playing, let's say, e3, and easy to take this pawn on c4 later on, since b5 will be met by a4, c6, a takes b5, c takes b5, and unfortunately black is losing a rook after queen a3, or at least a piece after knight c6. So, indeed, when black is playing f5, this opening line we call the Dutch defense, which chess players started to use already more than 150 years ago. Main, I would say, strategic value of this opening line that black immediately trying to take control over the e4 square, and after knight f6, e6 and d5, black could create just quite strong opening setup against the white's attempt to break the center after e4. So this line we call the Staunton1. Let's say in case of g3, knight f6, bishop g2, a6, knight f3, d5, c4 and c6. Despite the fact black's bishop on c8 is quite passive, but this position was quite one of the favorite opening line played by Mikhail Botvinnik. So black is going to develop the bishop later on to d6, short castling, then knight could come to e4, or even black could transpose the queen to h5, trying to support his kingside aggression. Of course, black's main problem in all these lines is the weakness, hole on e5, so in which white could occupy it with his minor pieces. Indeed, this opening line was quite popular before the Second World War, and I would say like 20 years ago. So there were many chess players who used to play this Staunton1. And also quite popular become line with g6 from the quite famous game. Chess players like Mikhail Gurevich, Sergei Dolmatov, and Alexander Chernin. So this we call this Leningrad system on the Dutch defense. After g6, bishop g7, short castling, black is increasing the pressure over the white center after d6 and e5. So at the same time, as you can see, e4 is under control, so white cannot play so easily e4. Indeed, in 1846, Howard Staunton, the father of the English chess players, in this position decided to start very aggressively his game and played e4, sacrificed the pawn, and this opening line we called the Staunton's gambit. So just a few ideas, of course. After f takes e4, so the most obvious move, of course, and knight c3. So white is intending to capture e4 without any compensation. So in that case, I would say that black is losing the main point of the opening line. So in Dutch defense, black has to try fighting for the e4 square, and in case if black is going to allow the white just simply to capture on e4, white gets clear superiority in the center. So all white pieces easily come into the game, and black's king side is just quite seriously weakening already. For instance, in one of the games which I checked, the black played d5, and of course this move is a serious mistake, just a blunder, because after queen h5 check, g6 and queen takes d5, white wins the pawn, and also the e4 pawn is gone very soon. So this of course cannot be recommended. In a few games which I would like to show you, so black tried to do of course the different ways, just to play differently, and the white intending in many situations, in many lines, when black is, let's say, playing knight f6, trying to protect this pawn on e4, or to play bishop g5, or to play f3, so to make the real sacrifice of the pawn for the better development, or to develop the bishop to c4. But always we are looking for the same target. So white is trying to get initiative, to get development advantage, exactly all these items which we already studied for so many times in our lectures about the gambits. So, and this is the most natural continuation of all gambits ideas from our course about gambit guide. Okay, so a few examples. Bishop g5. So even here, d5 is a wrong move. Why? Because after bishop takes f6, e takes f6, and queen h5 check, once again the d5 pawn is gone. g6, queen takes d5. Unfortunately, black cannot move the pawn on f5, trying to protect this e4 pawn, because after queen e5, the hanging rook on h8 calls it a day. After queen takes d5, knight takes d5, black is going to lose some material, or pawn on f6 or pawn on e4. So in this position also pawn on c7 is under attack. After c6, queen takes e4, white is just with extra pawn in much better position. Quite good, yeah? So d5 cannot be recommended, of course. One of quite famous game continued here, e6. Indeed, after knight takes e4, bishop e7, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6. White is getting clear superiority, just no question here. So white could play immediately queen h5 check, or first of all bishop d3, or c3, just intending to bring the queen, bishop to d3, and then knight to f3, and then queen to h5. So one of the games of Edward Lasker continue in this way, short castling, bishop d3. White is intending also queen h5, also knight f3, knight e5. Quite unpleasant position for black. So after knight f3, bishop b7, and queen e2, the position is definitely better for white. So white is intending also long castling, also knight e5 and f4, as I said before. Also possible to play just simply short castling. And let's back to the famous game, Lasker against Edward Lasker against Thomas. Here, continued b6, bishop d3, bishop b7, knight e5, short castling, and queen h5. When white is ready now, knight takes f6 and queen takes h7 check. When black's only answer was here, just to play or g6 or h6, but black decided to play queen e7, which allowed white to come with the greatest combination. So can you find it? White cannot capture immediately on f6 because after g takes f6, h7 square is covered. But here Edward Lasker played queen takes h7 check, sacrifices the full queen, knight takes f6, and black's king should merge out of the king side, since king h8 will be checkmate after knight g6. And king h6, of course, cannot solve the problem, so white is just playing knight g4, always forced h4, g3, bishop e2, rook h2 check, and now you can choose between long castling checkmate and king d2 checkmate. Similar ideas, so inevitable mate after queen takes h7. So this brilliant combination. It's not so difficult because all the line is quite forced, but still played in London 1911 between Edwin Lasker and Thomas. So let's back to the main theory which we trying to study here from the typical games played with Staunton's gambit. So, in one of the game happened g6, when black is trying to check the bishop to g7 and then to play knight f6. But as I said before, this cannot be recommended because after knight takes e4, white is keeping quite serious pressure in the center when it's not so clear where to move the king. So, because king side is just really destroyed by this f5 move. Bishop g7. So of course white keeps quite serious strategic initiative even after knight f3 and then bishop d3 or bishop g5. Indeed, white may start immediate assault on the king side after h4, since there is great target in black's position, this pawn on g6. After d5, knight g3, knight f6, bishop g5, knight c6 and h5. Black played bishop g4, bishop e2, and queen d7, believing that with the following long castle, his position will be quite good. Unfortunately, white just made one move and black had to resign instantly. What is that move? White played h5, h6. Suddenly, this pawn's move completely destroyed the harmony between black pieces. Let's try to understand the problem. So after bishop takes e2, White simply wins by h takes g7. Inevitable next move, g takes h8 queen. Black has to resign because it's losing at least one piece. If black is going away with the bishop f6, then white is just removing the last defender of this bishop on g4, and after bishop takes e2 and queen takes e2, suddenly e7 pawn is pinned, so there is no way for black to save the piece. So short catastrophe in the opening. Just 10 moves, black resigned. Let's try to make another example of catastrophe in the Staunton's gambit. g4 f5, e4, e takes f4, knight c3, e6, knight takes e4, bishop e7, bishop d3, knight f6, knight f3, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, d5, bishop d3. Here it's already quite easy to understand that something is wrong about black's position. White is intending knight e5, and queen comes to h5. Knight c6, castling short side. It was possible to play c3, of course, and now black decided to start his actions on the king side. g5, of course, blunder. Why? Because white simply captures this pawn. Bishop takes g5 will be met by queen h5 check with the decisive threats against the black's king. So next move, bishop takes g5, white with the two bishops and totally ruined black's king side is easy winning. Let's look at one more. d4 f5, e4, f takes e4, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, e6. So possible, of course, as I said before, knight takes e4. More or less it's leading to the previous game, or the game between Edward Lasker and Thomas. But also white could try and use the main idea of the Staunton's gambit, just pawn sacrifice, f3, h6, bishop h4. Now in case of e takes f3, knight takes f3, all white pieces are coming very, very fast in the fight. The bishop to d3, short castling, knight e5, and black's king side under very, very strong pressure. Black decided to continue the development of the pieces. But after f takes e5, how to stop e5? Bishop b7, e5. Black saw that e5 is not so dangerous because g5. Suddenly, after e takes f6, g takes h4 and queen h5 check. Wow! Black's king has no space. This is a checkmate. Move number 10 and black's king already checkmated. So when you play the Dutch defense, you have to be extremely careful, because f5 move opens this killing diagonal e8 h5. So watch out always against all these threats like queen h5, bishop d3, bishop g6 check, etc. One more. d4 f5, e take e4, f takes e4, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, g6. Okay, for the first time we can see some new development in the Staunton gambit. So black is trying to develop the bishop instantly to g7 and maybe in some line to play d5. So of course white could play immediately f3 or bishop takes f6 winning back the pawn, but why not just continue developing according to the gambit style we studied. Bishop c4, c6, straight into play d7, d5. White should move the pawn, d5, queen a5. And it's time now for us to get rid of black's only developed pieces, minor piece. Bishop takes, e takes, and queen d4. Also threatening queen takes f6, also threatening queen takes e4. After bishop g7, queen takes e4 and king d8. Temporarily black is threatening rook e8, but long castling. So all white pieces in the game just after knight f2. Knight is just also only one move. So after knight f3, all white pieces would take part in the game. f5. This is serious blunder because white played queen h4 check. And black is lost suddenly. Why? So after king c7, we can play also queen c4 check, also d6 check. Game is over. And now, whatever. Knight e2 with idea queen e7. Other ideas could be bishop b3 or bishop d3 and knight a4 check. So look at black's queen side locked. One more. d4 f5. e4 takes. Knight c3, knight f6. Bishop g5 and knight c6. According to the theory, this is quite playable position for black. Because in case of d5, knight e5, queen d4 and knight f7, black is trying to dismiss this bishop on g5. So after bishop takes f6 and e takes f6, knight takes e4. Position, I would say, not so easy, not so clear. But black almost forced to play this in this situation f5. Move which used in the game we are studying, c6 cannot be recommended after long castling. White is getting just very strong position. Bishop e7, d6 of course, blocking everything. Bishop f8, now continue developing one more piece in the game. Black's queen side is frozen. A rook in just one move away from the open file. So f5, this move cannot save black. Why? Look at that, simple move. Rook e1, black has to resign. So after f takes e4 and rook takes e4, bishop e7 and rook takes e7 check, game is over of course. Black has to give the queen, but there is no any better move. Knight e5, queen e5. If you are not capturing, so what else can you do? I'm intending knight f6, double check and checkmate. Let's see. Over. So black has to be very careful. Even you know the theory, even you understand that white is having some threats, you have to play extremely careful and not to fall into traps like in all the games we saw. Okay, let's try one more. d4 f5, e4 f takes e4, knight c3, knight f6. So instead of playing bishop g5, white tried another line, f3. By the way, here instead of bishop g5 and f3, also possible to play g4. So the line we will study very soon in our second lecture about the Staunton's gambit. So bayonet attacking the Staunton's gambit. So white is intending immediately to play g5 and only then to capture this pawn on e4. But let's look what happened after f3. E takes f3, knight takes f3, e6. So what exactly compensation white has for this pawn? The answer we will see very soon. Bishop d3. So the semi-open file f and good control over the center, better pieces development. These just very important factors. Bishop b4, short castling, knight e4. So white would like to exchange the pieces. Let's say in case of knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and d5, we even could think about the combination, typical combination here, like bishop takes h7, then knight g5, and later on queen comes to h5. Also we can manage maybe to play bishop g5 in some other line, or just simply back with the bishop on d3 and to keep very strong positional compensations and to great outposts on e5. And all the white's minor pieces looking towards the black's king side. So after knight e4, black in the game played bishop e7. Queen e1. So queen is also looking to h4. d5. Tempting move, knight to g5. So attacking the e6 pawn. Don't forget about the h7 square. How to stop all these threats? Queen d6 could be met by also knight e5. Black played knight e4, but this of course serious mistake. Takes on e4, queen takes e4, bishop h6, and black in the big trouble. So white is threatening bishop c4, white is threatening knight e5, white is threatening bishop queen g4 with the next idea bishop take g6. So almost no solution. Takes and takes. No way to stop knight take g6 with a decisive checkmate attack. So black decided just to resign already here. So I could tell you that a Staunton's attack, Staunton's gambit, was quite often guessed in a practice of the world champion Emmanuel Lasker and the Raul Capablanca, of course, also played it. So let's look at one of the game played by greatest chess champion Jose Raul Capablanca in some simultaneous exhibition 1914. d4 f5, e4 f takes e4, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, c6, and Capablanca continues the same gambit way. f3, e takes f3, knight takes f3, e6, bishop d3, d5, short castling, knight bd7, and as usual knight e5. taking control over the center. Bishop e7. Bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6. Queen h5, and black already in the very big trouble. g6 could be met by bishop take g6. Black played king e7, but of course this cannot be solution. So white first played bishop takes h7, and only after knight f8 all this combination is going. Knight e4, knight c4 check, and only now rook f5. So finally black has to capture. Rook e1 check, king takes d4, c3, king d3, and Capablanca finished the game with a nice finishing move, rook d5 checkmate. So another example from the classics. Raul Capablanca played in the simultaneous exhibitions the famous Staunton's Gambit. So in our next lesson I would like just also to show you experience of Emanuel Lasker with the Staunton Gambit line, and also I will show you today's practice from Grandmaster practice, and you will see that some famous Grandmasters are still using the Staunton's weapon against the Dutch defense. So thanks everybody for watching the first part of the Staunton Gambit in the Dutch. And if you have any question, you can contact me on www.chesslessons.wordpress.com. If you have any questions, I will answer. See you next time. Bye.